Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us again for part 2 in our discussion in raising a Bas Chabad. Hopefully, everyone here will find some inspiration from our different speakers, different viewpoints that we can practically implement into our homes, into raising our own daughters to be a Bas Chabad. There was somebody who came to the Rebbe. Now the story is said with the Rebbe. I'm not sure if this actually happened with the Rebbe or if it happened with somebody else, but the point is the same. And he gave the Rebbe a sefer, and he told the Rebbe that he included in the sefer all of the klolei chinuch, all of the rules for education, for educating our children. And the Rebbe looked through the sefer, and then the Rebbe turned to him and smiled and said that the main klal is missing here, which is that when it comes to chinuch, there are no klalim. There are no rules, which means every person is created differently. And we need to address each child as their own person. And what works for one child doesn't work for another child. We have to look at the person and their emotional well-being and their personality that works for raising this specific child, because each child is different and the same rules do not apply for each child. So here we have a group of 3 different women. Runs a play group and is a certified nurtured heart approach trainer. So we're looking forward to hearing from you, Mrs. Gorman. We have Niti Shachat. Mrs. Ruti Shachat grew up in Okay, sorry about that. Mrs. Ruti Shachat grew up in Argentina, on Shlichus in Argentina. She's now the assistant principal in Toronto High School, as well as a teacher in Tiferes Beis Yaakov in Toronto as well. So we're looking forward to hearing from you. And last but not least, we have Mrs. Slavatitsky, head in Belgium school, mother excellence. And Mrs. Slavatitsky is a fountain of wisdom. Now, I'm not just saying that to get myself some daughter-in-law points. I think that you will agree with me by the time we're finished over here, that she has so much to offer. Going to get started right away. So our first question that we have on the table is, how do we deal with peer pressure? There's a tremendous amount of peer pressure. I would say these days more than ever before, because our children see what their friends see on social media.
Don't hear.
Yes, it looks like she's frozen.
I think Mrs. Gorman, would you be able to please answer this question on peer pressure?
Okay, so hi everybody. Nice to be here. And I just wanted to start, like before any of the specific questions are going to come up, by saying that I know that a lot of today's topics of discussion are going to be centered around steering our children in the right direction and limit setting. And I just feel that before we get into these concepts, there is a foundational concept that I think should first be introduced and brought to the table. And I want to share with all of you what I wish would have been shared with me when I was starting my parenting journey. Um, you know, think of it like when you look outside and you see a very solid house or a very strong and healthy tree, and you wonder, like, what is the secret behind these homes and these trees that help them to weather all the storms and all the elements? And the secret lies what's underneath the surface. And what's underneath the surface of a solid home is a solid foundation. And what's underneath the surface of a strong, healthy tree are strong, healthy roots. And that is what keeps them intact and keeps them from falling over, even through the storms and the tornadoes. And when we talk about our children, the neshamas that Hashem has entrusted in us, the foundation and the roots that will keep them strong, because that's what it's all about. It's keeping our children strong and to be proud of who they are, and raising our daughters as Bas Chabad, and even our sons. It applies to them as well. Like Fegi said in the beginning, what the Rebbe said, like the one klal is that there really is no klal. So you are going to glean, hopefully today, many tips and tools and advice and good things that can be implemented. But the only one thing that's foolproof across the board, that strong foundation that you can't go wrong with, those strong roots, are staying in relationship with our children. That is the foundation. No matter what storms might be brewing and what is going on, the key to keeping them strong really is to stay in relationship with them. And those children that have more challenges, that seem to have more challenges in their Chassidischkeit, those children really have a higher level of intensity, which is really a higher level of life force, of neshama. And if we can open our hearts to that and realize that they are feeling such strong emotions and they are trying to manage these emotions, how hard that must be for them, that they want to make us proud, they don't want to disappoint us, and they want to be the way we feel they should be, but they have so many emotions that are going on inside of them. I just think how many times we have overwhelming questions or overwhelming emotions, and do we manage them perfectly all the time? Are we always making the wisest choices? And we're adults, our brains are supposedly fully developed. So imagine our children who have not yet reached that level of maturity, how scary it must be for them to be handling so much, and all these conflicting feelings of who they should be, who we want them to be, and feeling that maybe that's not where they are. So they need, number one is that they need to feel understood and respected. And if we're not in relationship with them, then What do they have to hold on to? They need a support. They need that strong foundation of relationship. If we want them to stay afloat on top of all the chaos, on top of all the conflicting feelings that are going inside, then our first and most important focus should be to always be in relationship with them. And then with Hashem's help, after all, Hashem is the third partner in their creation. So with Hashem's help, we'll be able to tackle everything else that comes our way. And actually, the first understanding, the first impression that our children get of what it means to have a relationship with Hashem, that Hashem is my rock. Hashem is always the one that I can turn to have that emuna and bitachon, that first understanding of that relationship, where if you do an Aveira, Hashem doesn't cut off relationship with you. If you do an Aveira with one organ, with one limb, you still have another 612 that are still very, very connected to Hashem. And then we have the union of Chuva. So Tashub, when you return, you're like even stronger than you were before. That first understanding of being in relationship with Hashem is, for them, that understanding is the way we, their parents, are in relationship with them. We are the ones that give them that introduction to a relationship with Hashem. So now, having established that, when it comes to peer pressure and a number of other elements as well, I would say that the strongest thing you can do is to build inner wealth within our children, to give them the confidence and the trust that we believe in them, that we know that they can make the right choices. I have many examples, because I have a large family, and I feel that if it's applicable, I can give you an example, to show you how it plays out. So actually, one of my daughters, when she entered high school, so she became, she and another two girls became very close friends. So it was the three of them. And I am sure that they probably stirred up some trouble. Maybe they were talking too much in class, and maybe they weren't following the rules exactly. Maybe they were coming back to class late after recess break or after lunch. And this goes back quite a few years. They're adults now. But somebody in the head staff of the school felt that the best thing would be to break up the friendship. And so, and she meant well. Like she felt that they would all be better off, maybe better able to focus on their learning. Maybe she felt that, they weren't being the best influence on each other. I'm not sure. But what she proceeded to do was she called each of us three mothers, and she told us that she feels very strongly that this friendship should be broken, and that we should all kind of not allow our daughters to be friends with each other anymore. So basically, forbid this friendship. Now, I knew that this is not going to work, because I knew that when I was a child and my mother tried to tell me who she feels I should be friends with, it never worked. And not just that, I was, I was a charismatic child myself, and Daska, who she told me she didn't want me to be friends with, were girls that I was friends with. And that was even when I was younger. So here they are, they're teenagers, and I knew that it wasn't going to work. One of the other mothers didn't know that it wasn't going to work. So she was trying to do, take the advice that she was given and try to follow it. And she told her daughter, I am forbidding you to speak to your two friends from here on. You're not allowed to. And the other two girls, I didn't discuss it with my daughter yet at that point. And the other two girls, my daughter and the other girl, were like in hysterics. They're trying to call her and she's not answering the phone, and she just gave one line like, my mother doesn't let me talk to you anymore. And that girl, who was trying to follow her mother's orders, locked herself in her room, and she was crying nonstop. So it lasted about like less than 24 hours. But my daughter came to me when she realized, when she was told, oh, my mother doesn't let me talk to you anymore, something from the school, someone from the school said, my daughter came running to me. She was hysterical. And she said, Mommy, what is this? Did you get the call also? And I told her, yes, I did. And she said, what did you say? And I told her that I very respectfully told the person who called me in the head staff, I very respectfully told her that I cannot, nor do I want to, control the friends that my daughter chooses to have. I told her that there's no way you can. I don't feel that is something I can do. And I told her that I said to my daughter, I told her that I trust you. I trust you with your friendships. I respect you and I trust you that you are making the right choices, the wise choices. You are very smart. You have a very big heart. And I know that you are going to make wise choices with your friends. And I like your friends and I don't have a problem with it. And you are strong. And you are strong. And this wave of relief like washed over her. And she said, thank you, Mommy. She felt trusted. She felt believed in. And it actually encouraged her. This was like an impetus for her to discuss her friendships with me, because she knew that I trusted her, and me trusting her built up a trust in her for me and for our relationships. And actually, so it did. So obviously the whole thing dissolved. Like they were the next day already, like, they were back to best friends. I did discuss with my daughter, where this possibly could have come from and the limits that they have to set, in the classroom, and that there should, there has to be respect and no disruptions. And she got it. There was a certain, she said, in her mind, my mother is looking at me now as a mature, that bridge was being crossed from childhood into adulthood. That's what the teenage years are. And actually, through the high school years, I have to say that one of the friends was going through struggles. She was going through struggles, and my daughter felt comfortable to discuss them with me. And I still think that that was the basis. The reaction that I had and the trust that she saw that I had in her gave her the comfort level and the safety to come to me when there was something brewing, when there was, some struggles going on with her friend. And she said to me then, she said, I just listened. I didn't say anything. And she said, just because she's going through a hard time, I'm not going to drop her. And I said to her, you are such a loyal friend. That is beautiful. And again, it was like that strength, giving her that inner strength and that inner wealth, that I trust you. And the only thing I said to her is that she should just be aware and know when something is too big for her to handle alone. Because a lot of times, friends at that age are closer with each other than they are with their parents, with their teachers. Like their closest relationship is with their friends, and they can use their friends as a clutch for everything that they're going through. So I just wanted my daughter to know that if you feel something is too big for your shoulders, then it's big of you to be able to recognize that, and then we can take it to wherever it has to go to. And she totally got it. She managed. She is so strong. She has, you know, so much strength of character, so much inner wealth. And the three of them today, years later, are so close with each other, even though they're all in different parts of the world. But this is a friendship that really we can say has stood the test of time. And they are there for each other. They are a beautiful support for each other. They're all beautiful people. So peer pressure is a thing. It's a real thing. But it's some things that we want to set limits with are in our control. And I'm sure we'll get to some of those things, you know, phones, technology, etc. To some degree, some things are in our control. Peer pressure and choosing their friends, you know, when they're teenagers, I feel that that is not in our control. When they're children, we can try to control that. We invite, you know, we invite the children that we would like them to be friends with, and then we have them spend more time together so they, you know, just naturally become friends. But then when they enter their teenage years, they're choosing their own friends, and to try to control that is just going, in my opinion, my humble opinion, is just going to backfire. So what we want to do instead, you know, instead of beating the darkness with a stick, you know, build them up from the inside. You build them up from the inside, and they have their own strength. They have such a greatness that our job is to be Neres Lahayir. Our job is to light their spark of greatness that the Eibishter already put in them. So to build them up and to give them that inner wealth is, I think, the best thing that we can do for them.
That's beautiful. Thank you. So we're going building them up while they are young and before the real challenges of peer pressure set in, and showing our trust in them, building our trust in them, and our relationship with them is really what's going to best help them make these right choices on their own internally when they're faced with the peer pressure, which can get quite intense once they are teenagers. Thank you. Mrs. Shachat, can we hear some of your input on this important topic?
Sure. Okay. Hi, everyone. I also first want to actually thank my mother, that is one of the participants here, because what I built today and all the chinuch that I have and I'm able to give to my kids, to my students, is all because of my mother, how she raised us. We're raised in Shtichos in Argentina, strong pillar of the house, and just want to thank her. So with that, I'm gonna start, and can agree more with what Mrs. Gorman said. Actually, is the same thing that I wanted to open up and say the same thing. That the most important thing is really our relationship with our daughters. That is number one. So I'm not going to go over everything. I'm just going to add a little bit, and I'm going to bring actually a personal experience that happened to us just this summer when we were going on a very high highway on the mountains. We were driving, and it was actually very scary to drive in that highway because once you look at the sides or back, it's all cliffs, but it's unbelievable cliffs, and you have to continue straight and drive straight, because if not, you can get a heart attack just from looking at the cliffs that are on the side. And I was, as we were going on that highway, looking just as if we're climbing to Shemaim. That's what it looks like. We're climbing to the sky. I was thinking about the famous story of Rabbi Meir from Mishlan about the mikvah in his city. The mikvah in his city was a mikvah on top of a small mountain, and in the days that it was very cold and everything will get icy, he still managed to climb up the ice and get to the mikvah. When his students tried to do that, they didn't manage, and they asked him, how come? What are you doing that you can get there without slipping, without falling? And when we tried, we fell, we couldn't even get there, not even 3 steps. How do you do it? And his response was, when we are when we are tied up above, then we don't fall. When we tied with the right thing, when we are mekusher Torah, when we actually are involved in the right thing. And I think this is exactly when we talk about all these things, when our relationship with our daughters is a positive relationship, when our daughters are strong, they are full, and this goes also for other things that we're going to discuss later, when they are busy with the right things, when our relationship is strong, then there is no room for other things. And in peer pressure, I feel it's the same thing. When we have such an open communication, and many times we're going to have to decide, and I'm just going to add to what Mrs. Gorman said, many times we have to decide, do we want to comment? Do we want to say something that our daughter did wrong, or the relationship is more important? It's a question that we have to ask ourselves many times when we want to say a negative comment, when we want to say something that they didn't do right. What is more important at this time? Is it the relationship that it's more important, or what I want to teach her by saying this comment? Most of the time, the negative comments doesn't bring us to any place, but it's the teaching. And we can discuss later how actually the teaching can happen in a way that it's not just giving negative comments. But when we keep that relationship very positive, and sometimes it's very hard because we worried about the future. We as parents, as mother, always think, but if I'm gonna let her wear that skirt, and if I'm gonna let her be like that, and let her do this and go to that place and use that phone, what, she's gonna grow up and she's gonna be like this and she's gonna grow up like that. And all these thoughts run into our head. And so we react in a way of that thoughts are leading us, which is not the reality. So we have to stop at that moment and say, what is the right thing for me to do now? And what is important right now? That I should say something. And sometimes it is the right place to say no. And sometimes we do have to say no. Not sometimes, many times we have to say no and set our boundaries. But once the relationship is positive and we have such open communication, when I tell my daughter, you know, this is not the place you should be going with your friends right now, then it's a different, and actually I'm not going to say that way, but I'm going to ask her what she thinks about it. And in that way, we will come to a conclusion. But even when the limits needs to be set, when there is strong relationship, they understood that my daughter can understand in a whole different way. And the same goes with students, and the same goes with everyone. When you keep a close relationship, an open relationship, the boundaries are accepted in a whole different way. And there is no place, like Mrs. Gorman said, to say, no, I don't want to listen to you, because there is that close relationship.
So it's a conversation. It's a conversation between you and your daughter. And you built that relationship to be able to have that kind of conversation. It's not you, you know, ordering your daughter or saying this is how it has to be. It's a conversation. Okay, and Mrs. Slavatitsky, let's hear what you have to share with us on this topic.
Okay, first of all, I want to say I try to avoid Hebrew words, but English is not my main language. And if I'm using them and somebody wants to translate them for me, I'm thankful and it will be very helpful. First of all, I agree, relationship is the basic and whatever was said. I just want to point more on the problem of peer pressure. Peer pressure means that a young person, not a young, older person can also be, but by young people, it's very strong, that they feel pressured. It means that they feel the necessity to do things that in fact they don't want to, or they don't know if they want it. That means peer pressure. And that's what makes them come to things that in fact, maybe they wouldn't even want it from the beginning. How can we avoid negative peer pressure? And because if even the positive, it's done by pressure, by peer pressure, it's not really innate, it's not really seriously meant. So peer pressure is very often not such a good and positive thing. But the first thing is that when we start to raise our children with the milk that we give them, with the mother milk, we have to give them values. And we have to give them very strong values where we are very consequent in them, because values gives confidence. And when a child, a young person has values and he believes in these values, they are strong. This gives him self-confidence. This is one thing. It helps him to know right from wrong. When he's more clear on what's right and what's wrong, it's easier to deal with peer pressure. But I want just to give a few little examples, because I know we spent already a lot of time on the question. A few little examples, what means that we are not consequent in our values. We all want to raise children that should be God-centered and not I-centered. We all want this. We all want our children should be givers. And in fact, the basic of the world, Olam Chesed Yiboneh, the basic of the world is Chesed, is giving. But sometimes in our spontaneous reactions, we go against our values without meaning it. There was a woman who felt, she was depressed. She went to a therapist for help, and she didn't have a babysitter for her 2.5-year-old girl. So she had to take her with her. She took some toys and she told her, please sit very quietly in the next room and don't come disturb me until I'm finished. And this little girl was sitting and playing very nicely. And in the middle, the mother, she didn't feel well and she started to cry. And the little child saw the mother crying. And when she saw the mother crying, she ran to her mother, and she has this very precious blanket that she loves and never separates from this blanket, and pushes it into the mother's hands. And the mother said, I told you that when I'm talking, please sit down, don't come and disturb me. She missed out a very, very big opportunity to strengthen her value. This little kid wants to give her her most precious thing, this shmata, this blanket that she doesn't want to separate from it. And the mother, she doesn't feel well, but she blocked her. And instead of using this opportunity, that's so nice, I'm so thankful, you want to give me that to me, and just hug her and send her to go and play. But our life is sometimes harder, easier, and we can't always be in control. But this is, for instance, an example where we give over values, but we are not consequent in the values, and we want them to be a giver, but we don't show them that they are really givers. And just to point out that they are givers. Let's say when a young child comes home from Cheder and we ask him, did you have good marks? Did you have a good day? Instead of this asking, children, when you learn, you strengthen the world. Politically in Israel, there's a little bit tension. Do you feel that you strengthened the world today? Was your learning that you are a giver, that you are doing for others, that you are centered on your mission in life and not on I? And this can start with the mother's milk when they are very, very young. And I think that this point, that we are consequent in our values, and we strengthen the point that we are here for a mission. We are here to make a difference. We are here to become part of a bigger picture. We have a shlichus. We were chosen for this specific shlichus. And we can explain this when they are 3 and 4 and 5. It doesn't have to be. It's not philosophy when they are teenagers. They can understand this earlier. They can live with it, but we have to be consequent with it. And that will help them to give the self-confidence and to not to be victims of peer pressure as much as it's possible. But it starts with our work. Okay.
So again, it starts way before they're hit with this strong peer pressure, really building them up with the values from right when they're born and the self-confidence. Okay, we would like to move on to the next question. which is a difficult question. And that is, what kind of attitude should we be developing in our children towards the secular world out there, towards, education, getting a degree, the whole secular world out there? What kind of attitude do you want to cultivate in our children towards the world, towards the secular world? And let's start with Mrs. Shachat.
Yeah, so it is a very hard question, and I think general question, very hard to answer that, because I think this is very personal to each girl, family, background, place she is, what she's looking in the future. Um, I don't think there is an answer, uh, good answer for everything. I think everyone needs to speak to their mashpia, to the people who understand, and see what is the best for each one of these things in the secular world. But what I do want to say, continuation of what we're talking before, and the story that I was bringing before, is that we as parents, we don't realize, sometimes we think we don't have control in our kids' life, in our chinuch. They're teenagers, they do what they want. We have no control in them. It's true that we don't have control. It's true that they're independent people later on, adults, and it is true. But sometimes we don't understand how much power we have on their life, meaning how much we can bring them to want and to do the right things. And I think going back to the story, when our life, when a girl is so inspired in the right thing, and she sees her parents, like Mrs. Savitsky said, the right values, and she sees her house, what her mother is doing, and giving classes and inspiring other people, or doing chesed, and her mother is happy with that, and it's a happy home, and it's a happy place, and so she want to do the same. But when girls see that the parents are actually having a very difficult life, and they don't have enough money maybe, and they're always complaining about that, and yes, then they're looking to learn a degree, to do this, to do that, what I can do to make things better. But when we try as parents to make a good place a positive place, and again, it's with open, good relationship, with positive reinforcement and positive comments, and the house is a happy place, that most likely the girls want to stay there and want to be doing almost the same thing. I find myself doing exactly the same thing that my mother is doing. My mother she's a college teacher in Argentina, and I found myself doing the same thing. She is a teacher, I'm a teacher. She's, at the end of the day, I find myself doing the same exactly thing, because I grew up like that, and I so much appreciate it. And I look what she did, and we lived in a house that was the life, and that is the right thing, and to give the Rebbe Naches. And so all my sisters we are almost everyone, Kenan Horrible, 12 kids, but everyone is doing almost the same thing, because that's the way we grew up. I think it's very important to give that feeling to the kids, so the kids will want to do the right thing.
Thank you. And Mrs. Gorman?
Okay, so all mothers out there, I think that it is crucial that together with our husbands, when we're building our home, we need to have our MO. We need to have a very strong mission statement for our family. And even if there are some issues and things that you don't see eye to eye on, for example, budget, financing, things that are between just the two of you and don't have to reflect onto the children, that's okay. You can deal with that and see what you can come to, what kind of compromise you could come to. But when it comes to the mission statement for your family and for your children and for us as our team, you have to be so unified. The parents, the mother and the father, need to come as a very united front. This is who we are. And I want to add on to what Mrs. Levatitsky said before. Setting limits is actually safety for our kids. Boundaries are safety, they're clarity. If you have a house, you have a swimming pool in your backyard, but you don't have a gate around it, every time your kids are running to the backyard, you're petrified. You're running after them, you're grabbing their hands, you don't want them to get close to the pool. But as soon as you put a gate up, if you put a fence up, and then they can't have access, you can breathe. And your kids are free to run around because they know that there's a boundary there that they can't go past. So when we set limits for our children, it's clarity for them and it's security for them. They actually want it. I had a few examples with my own children with the limits that we set with their phones, etc. And we're not talking about phones now, so I won't bring it up. But when it comes to wanting the secular education, I think that we are so fortunate today. I mean, myself and my husband, none of our children so far have felt a desire to go for a secular degree. But I know what we would say, if we had to be open to the idea, because every child is different. If we had to be open to the idea, I think that our limit there would be that it has to be in a frum setting. And we are very fortunate today that we have that. We have that. There are separate colleges for men, there are separate colleges for women, and it's all in a frum environment. And, if the question would come to us, I believe that that's what our response would be. And we're lucky today that we have these kind of options.
Thank you. So, and I would like to extend it beyond just a secular degree, but becoming more knowledgeable in, things that are going on in the world around us. Sometimes I find that the children in our schools don't give as much importance to the secular studies part of the day. And really, what is our approach to that? What are we trying to tell our children with that? Mrs. Slavatitsky, do you have more to add and to share on this topic?
Okay. The one of the things that we have to be aware as a Yid is that every Yid is an ambassador. He's an ambassador from Hashem. What means an ambassador? Ambassador means that somebody from a different country, he's an ambassador from Israel and he lives in America. So his priorities, his ambitions, his bond, his life is Israel, but he lives in America. In America, he eats American food and American holidays and American schools and American mentality. He lives there, but his being is connected to Israel. The day that he becomes a citizen of America, he's a boged, a traitor, you say? I don't know.
Yes.
A traitor. It means he can do everything, like when you meet him in the street, you think that he's like all the Americans, but in fact, he belongs to Israel. And he has to be a man to Israel.
Loyal.
Every Yid is an ambassador of Hashem. He belongs to the Eibishter's purpose of the world. And the Eibishter sent him here to a secular world. The secular world is much more than just secular degrees, a degree in secular studies. We deal, and especially women, deal with the secular world a lot. At my age, I had to try to figure out a little bit about technology because I have to know what my children are doing. And I can't say I'm too old for that. I have to be involved in it just to know what's right and wrong and just to help my children to deal with it. Or even my English. So the idea of being an ambassador means that how much we have to deal with the secular world. There are a lot of shilas. What's forbidden, what's good, what's right, what's wrong. And this, everybody has a mashpia and has to have a role and ask the questions. But she has to go out with 3 points, 3 rules. As being an ambassador means, this is not my world. I'm dealing with it. I'm working in it. I'm enjoying even it, but it's not mine. My world is another world. And I'm so forced, and that's what the Eibishter wanted, that I should deal with it. That's what we say, Vatitan teref lebeisa. A Jewish woman gives teref. She gives food to her children. She gives them everything they need. Why is it called teref? Teref is not a nice word. We call teref a behemoth that eats with a lot of energy and taiva. Another animal we call teref. So why do we call teref what the Jewish mother brings home? It should be parnose, it should be mazon, it should be chayim. But what does it mean teref? Is because the woman on one hand, she's very involved in the secular world. She has to know what is in style and not kosher and what is not in style. She has to know this, she has to deal with it. She brings at home the secular world. She brings at home, she speaks the language of the country with her children. She brings at home a lot of secular world. But she has to know that it's on one hand important to build a home. The home has to be nice and the clothing has to be nice and the food has to be tasty and set up nicely. But she knows that it's treif, taref, matrif da'ato shel adam. So that's why it's called teref. On one hand, she invests in it, but on the other hand, she is aware and realizes that it's something dangerous. She's dealing with something dangerous. And the Eibishter entrusted this to the women more than to the men because he made her, by nature, closer to godliness. She's a bas melech innate by birth. She doesn't need a bris. She doesn't need to make a bar mitzvah. She doesn't need to, she becomes it automatically. That's why she gives over the Yiddishkeit. Being Jewish, she gives over to the next generation. So she has to know that it's not mine. She has to know that it's not my guide, even though if I'm doing secular studies because I ask and it's for good purpose and it's to help to make a dira b'tachtonim, that's everyone's personal issue. But she has to know that it's not my guide. It's not Torah be'edam al tami. It can't be my teacher. It can't be my guide. It's not mine, not my guide, but it's an opportunity. We have opportunities there to make a dwelling home for Hashem in these secular places. But this, who is able to do that and who is not able to do that, all these questions everybody has to ask herself and know that she deals with something that she's on one hand close to, but on the other hand might be very treif and make her tiruf hadat, make her a little bit meshuggah. Just want to tell a little story. I had a student who was very in a growing mood for growth. She organized shiurim, and she became she was from a modern family, but she started to work on herself and wanted to become more spiritual, more connected, and have a better relationship with Hashem. She was more spiritual. But she had one type to read books from Harry Potter. Now, when she came up to me about Harry Potter, I didn't know anything about Harry Potter. And the truth is, I don't know much more today. But she came and she told me there's a new book of Harry Potter. I read all the books. It's tension, it's something that I love. If I know that there's a new book and there's nothing wrong, that's what she told me. I don't know about it. But she told me there's nothing bad, there's no kfira, there's nothing wrong. It's something that makes me feel very good. And if I won't read this new book, I will feel the whole time that I miss out. It might stop my growing because the whole time I will feel that I miss out. Maybe I should read it and finish and go on to be spiritual. What should I do? Or should I decide it's a secular thing? And as I'm in a growing process, maybe it's not good. What should I do? So I told her, I can't tell you what to do. First of all, I don't know what's Harry Potter. And secondly, I have no time for Harry Potter even to inquire and know what it is, even you say that it's so interesting. So I can't tell you what to do. If it bothers you very, very much that you will stop growing, maybe you should read. I can't tell you, but I can tell you one thing. I how do we make holy the secular world? It's either by deciding, Hashem, because of you, I don't use it, or for you, I use it. There's the two ways. Now, Harry Potter is a field where I can't bring Hashem into because I have no connection to it. I don't know what it is. It is a field, and I understand it's a big library of Harry Potter, and many people are very excited about it. So I don't know, and I can't do that anything. I can't do any Kiddush Hashem, any Dira B'Tachtonim in Harry Potter. But you are the most Adam Mat'im, the right person to deal with Harry Potter and tell Hashem, but I want to connect to you through Harry Potter. Now you decide what to do. After 2 weeks, she came and she told me, I decided not to read it. I felt that I brought Hashem in Harry Potter by saying no and not to read it. And she felt very good about it. She felt that she could bring Hashem to something where she could, where somebody else can't. Somebody else is not in this growing process, and on the other hand has no time for Harry Potter in the same, both together. So she felt that she really, really served Hashem through this secular world. And at the end, she didn't have any more time for it. But when I say a girl goes into a dressing room in a store and she tries a skirt, and the skirt is just exactly covering the knee. If she moves, it's already not so kosher. It can be kosher, but not glad kosher. And she has a debate with herself. Should she go for it or should she not? And I said, I can't wear such skirts. I'm too heavy for it. It doesn't suit me. It's ugly on me. I can't bring Hashem in the dressing room with this skirt, but you can. And if you bring Hashem to this dressing room, it's a place where Hashem can dwell only if somebody brings him in. And you have this opportunity. You conquered a peace here in this world where you made the Dira B'Tachtonim, where nobody else could do it. And I think that this is the general attitude. I mean, it's questions. The situation has to ask questions and to go to a mashpia and advise and think over it. But just you have to know we deal with something that is, in one hand, important and can be very important and can be very used, the Kedusha, but who can and who can't, we have to figure out and think about it. But knowing, on the other hand, that it's not mine, but it can be an opportunity. See it as an opportunity that doesn't belong to me. The whole idea of we have to bring the mayanot, the sources outside. What means chutza? For us, it's chutza. It's not me. We have to bring the mayanot, but we have to feel that it's chutza. Constantly feel this chutza, and it's opportunities for the big picture, what the Eibishter wanted when he created the world. Okay, thank you.
Can I add something
So
to that?
your answer, yes, go ahead, please.
I know we didn't mention this specifically, but I think it's also in that topic, and I think it is very important to say something about it. And this is technology and phones. I think it also falls in that category of secular, and I think also what Mrs. Zavatitsky said belongs to that also. But I want to maybe give a little bit of a different perspective how we can help our daughters, specifically after Corona times. We know how much technology was used in a very big amount, and it's very hard to go back to what it was before. And even what it was before wasn't always good. And I just want to say a few words about that. I mean, yeah, for sure, every house should have filter phones, and we should restrict our phones, age appropriate, talking to our mashpiyas and whatever the Rabbanim says. But I also want to look at the idea why our girls need that technology so much. And sometimes it's us also, it's not only our daughters, why we in that place that we need that so much. And we are using our phones and our social media. And even if it's kosher social media, WhatsApp and other things, why is it that we're using it so much? And when we look at that, we see that a person, he needs according to psychologists, I don't exactly remember who and what, but there is a few things that a person needs to survive. And one of the things is a human reaction. I mean, when relationship between people and human, that is something that a person need in order to survive. And so when we don't get that, because so much technology, because of corona times, because whatever is social distancing, then we look for it even more and more and more. And it's almost like filling up a very big empty hole. And we try to fill it with more technology and more phone usage and more fake human interaction, but that it's not the right thing. And I think as mothers, we could give that interaction to our daughters. Yes, we're not their friends. Yes, we're not their peers, but we're still can feel that we can have meaningful conversation. We can ask them how they're doing every day, talk to them and have that human interaction without the phone, just talking, just about anything, about something. It is so important, and that will just build, again, good relationship and maybe help a little bit to that extreme phone usage that we all are experiencing. That again, of course, we need restrictions and other things that come into place. So just wanted to add that.
And thank you, very true. I want to say that, Mrs. Slavatitsky, your answer about the secular education reminds me of the famous story of the chassid who would wear business clothing during the year when he would come on Yom Tiv to celebrate Yom Tiv together with his Rebbe Shalavush. And then at some point he said, who am I fooling? The Rebbe knows what I do throughout the year. And so one year he showed up in his regular business attire, and he had a yechidus with his Rebbe, and the Rebbe said to him, what happened? You always come with your chassid shalavush. And the chassid said, but this is what I wear all year round. So I figured I'll be true to myself. This is who I am. This is where I am all year round. What do I need to trick the Rebbe? And of course I knew that you wear your business attire all year. You wear it to fool them. But that who are you really? It's the chassid that I see every year on Yom Tiv. And I think that's very much the message that you're saying, is that sometimes we do have to be involved in the secular world and become more knowledgeable in certain areas, or pursue a degree, or give our children secular education and all of that, in a kosher way, based on the guidelines of Rabbanim and Mashpiyim, but to remember that this is not my world. This is not, I come from somewhere else. This is not my world. I need to do this. I'm going to use it. How can I use it in order to make a dir b'tachtainim? But this is not who I am and who I strive to be. We're going to move on to question number 3. And I know last time we met up together, we talked about tznius, and one of the questions were, why is tznius such a big emphasis? Well, it's back on the table again, and packaged a little bit differently, but we are going to talk about it and try to get down to the bottom of it. Tznius brings along with it a lot of negative connotations, and the question is, how can we make tznius a more positive mitzvah and a more popular discussion? I guess basically we want to figure out how to make tznius great again. So for that, we're going to start with Mrs. Slavatitsky. If you can share with us your thoughts on this matter.
Okay, there's indeed, I'm teaching for many, many years young girls, and tznius is something that brings up a lot of negative feelings, negative thoughts. It's considered like we are going to talk again about chnokishkeit, about nebi, about dress, about not to be too public, all kind of ideas. And really, tznius doesn't deserve this reaction, because it's really not that. Now, tznius has two parts. One part is just halachas, that it's just like meat has to be kosher, and the mezuzah has to be kosher, and the kitchen has to be kosher, then the dressing has to be kosher. The halachas, a woman has to cover her hair. It's a halachic side. Now, if we were raised from when we are small children to have a relationship with Hashem, that having a relationship with Hashem is not a mystical thing. It's something innate in us. It's by nature. We are family of Hashem. We all have a chelik alokam imal. We just give we know this, but in our everyday messages, we give sometimes contradictory messages, or we are not consequent in it. But if we want to have a relationship with Hashem, if we know that that's what makes us so special, that we can be bigger than ourselves, we can be we have a relationship with Hashem who is infinite. We can be part here of something so big and so tremendous. If we grow up with this feeling, it's not a knowledge, it's a feeling that we have to awaken in the heart that's deep inside by every child, every baby that is born. Before he was born, he was connected to Torah, he was connected to spiritual life, he was connected to ruchnius, to godliness. He didn't have any sense of gashmis. His whole food, his physical life was through the energy of the mother's food. But he himself is connected to ruchnius. Just this little clap here under the nose doesn't make us another creature. It's just to make us reconnect to it in the secular world, reconnect to it in the world here down. But that's, if we live with this, we want to have a relationship with Hashem, we don't have problems with halacha. And just like it's normal for somebody to eat kosher meat, and it's normal for him to have kosher tefillin, it should be just normal for him to have a kosher dress, and to know that the Eibishter has put there much depth in the halachas, but he tells that the knees have to be covered, sitting, standing, in all situations. That is a halacha. Now, there's nothing to argue with a halacha if we take it as people that are engaged in Yiddishkeit, in Torah. If we keep the other halachas, there's no reason why not to keep these halachas. The other problem is, agav, the word halacha in Hebrew is the same word than hakala, than the bride. We know there are a lot, it's very popular to learn Kabbalah now. There are a lot of Kabbalah groups, and people that are not frum, and they learn Kabbalah for years and they don't become frum. There are people that are not so much with the mitzvahs, and they go to Fabrengens and they do other things. But why does all this Kabbalah learning, or even Hasidus learning, or Torah learning, in Israel, it's very popular. I have a course in Tanakh, and they stay completely fried. Why don't they change? Because this is called dating Torah. You know what? We know we have to be engaged. We have to marry Torah. It's a marriage. And we can date and date and date. When we want to start to go on and stop dating and get engaged and getting married, then we need a kala. And kala is halacha. Halacha means when we go over to agree to keep the mitzvahs, and the mitzvahs as he prescribed, I want to have a relationship with someone. The day that a woman wants a new car, she's not preparing a meal to her husband that he doesn't like, if she wants to ask him a car. And the day that my son wants a bike from me, he's not bringing me a bad report. He's trying to have a good report that day. Yeah, he's trying to behave nicely. If you want a relationship, first of all, we don't do things that the other side doesn't like. And we try to do things that he wants. On the basic, without chassidus, just basic logically. So if you want to have a relationship with Hashem, you want to be part of it, then automatically you want to do what he likes and what he wants, and don't want to do what he doesn't want. So if we have this attitude, then the halachos of tznius don't have to be such a major problem. The major problem is that we think that the halachos is part of the hashkafa, and we don't realize it's just halacha. It's as important as having kosher meat and the collarbone that has to be covered is a halacha. And just like I can't take my car on Shabbos, there's no difference. But there's a different thing is the concept of tznius, and the concept of tznius is something, a second part that has nothing to do with the halachos of tznius. The concept of tznius, it shines through the halachas. It shines through our everyday life. It shines through our behavior in total, but it has nothing to do with the halachas itself. And we know that people mention the pasuk, the verse, Kol Kvuda Bas Melech Pnimo, for tznius. What is the connection between this and tznius? This has nothing to do with the halachas of tznius. This has to do what modesty, what tznius means. Tznius means that Kol Kvuda, that every woman feels that her weight, her covet, her strength, her power is that she is inside a queen, that she's inside a Bas Melech, that she's inside connected. She feels a feeling of dignity. That's why we say that women come from Malchus. Malchus means the way I feel about myself. And Torah teaches us what's the healthy feeling of a woman to feel dignity inside, not outside. It has nothing to do with outside. It has to do with how I feel about myself. And how I feel about myself, I reflect in my outside. And my outside can be halacha and not modest. There's two things, because I feel very low, very empty. So it can be halacha, but it comes through the message that she feels that she has lost, or she doesn't have dignity, or she's empty. So dignity, it's a feeling. It's modesty, it's this feeling that comes, shines through everything. Shines through my speaking, my dancing, my singing, my acting, my talking, the way I think, about in everything. How much dignity I feel. Dignity is not a trait in itself. Malchus is not a mid in itself. Malchus is the way all the midas come over. I can do chesed like a shmata. I can do chesed with dignity. The woman, by her creation, the way she was created with dignity inside. That's how she should naturally feel. The whole world tried to just destroy this feeling by all kinds of ways. But naturally, it's very interesting that the word bari and bria, creation and health, is the same word in Lashon Kodesh. Because what means to be healthy? To live in harmony and resonance with the creation, the way we were created. The way a woman was created is to feel inside her dignity. And she expresses this. And that's why we have very individual outlooks by women and not by men. When we look on the men's side, all men look alike. When we look on the women's side, every woman tries to look different from another woman. Nobody wants to wear the same dress as other 5 people, because that would be a sign that people like the dress. No, even though I don't want to decide that people like it, I want to be alone, exclusive. Why? Because she has dignity inside, her outside is the reflection of what she feels about herself. So that's why it's very individual, because everyone's dignity is very different. The way all her talents, all her koichos are different. And if she does it with dignity, it comes over different. And even though that women have the mitzvah of tznius, it would be more normal that they would look alike, that the style for women would be like uniform and not for the men. The men have the mitzvah of tznius. And we see just the opposite. The men, they more or less, even by the goyim, they look alike. When we go to a goyish wedding, the men look alike, always smokings and parparim, they all look similar. There's no so much differences. By the women, it's very, very different, because the whole idea of tznius is how I feel about myself. So if we can bring into our children that to feel that my whole strength is because I'm so dignity and I lost my dignity and have pain, why do I feel not in resonance with tznius? Is because I lost my dignity, because I don't know anymore who I am. And I show in my outside the emptiness. That's what we see in the street. It screams how empty they feel about themselves. They feel like objects of pleasure instead of being subjects of dignity, the subject of love, the subject of respect, to be a subject and to know that that's why they're reserved. When I come to a home and I see that something is very locked, a closet very locked, I know that there's 2 reasons. Or there are dirty laundry there, or there's something very precious. There's no middle. The question is, the problem that people feel negative about modesty is because they feel more connected, that they are hidden and they have to be modest because they are lower, because they are not so much valuable. Instead of feeling, and that is called feel. Do you feel inside that you are a princess? Even when you walk in the chaluk, when you walk in the kitchen and you diaper and you wash floors, but do you feel a princess? Are you a princess that's doing it? Or are you trying to be a queen to the outside and empty inside? So I think that tznius is something, it's a value that has to be brought into our brains and minds from when we start to drink milk.
So really to cultivate that inner dignity within our children, our daughters, and that will then spill out automatically into the way that our daughters dress.
Yeah.
And obviously we need to do this for ourselves in order for our daughters to, this reminds me of a story. There was a chassid, his name was Reb Shmuel Ber of Barisov, and he hired a melamed to teach his children. And this melamed was a fabulous melamed. He really knew a lot about teaching, and he really taught them a tremendous amount of material. He taught very well. But Reb Shmuel Ber realized that this melamed, in his own time, he wasn't learning. And so he fired him and he hired a different melamed. Now this melamed wasn't such a strong teacher per se. He didn't know all the teaching techniques necessarily, but he was a melamed that in his own spare time, he sat and he learned. And the first melamed came to him and he said, "Hayitachin, why did you fire me? I'm not a good melamed." And he said, "No, you're an exceptional melamed. You really know how to teach. And you're teaching my children will show them exactly how to teach their children how to learn. But I don't want my children to know how to teach their children how to learn. I want my children to want to learn." So if we want our daughters to feel this dignity, and we want our daughters for it to spill over into their tznius, then it's not about what we're going to tell them, but how we're going to be, because that's gonna speak the loudest to them. Let's move on to Mrs. Gorman, and please share with us on this important topic.
Okay. So I agree. Everything that was said was beautiful and absolutely true. And it's so true what you just said, Fagi, that if we don't want our children to wear, for example, slits, then we shouldn't be walking around with slits. If we don't want our children, I'm going to spill it over, but if we don't want our children to have Facebook on their phones, then really we shouldn't have Facebook on our phones. We have to role model to our children, what we kind of would like to see in them. But a practical way I feel can be very helpful, because I don't mean to be the pessimist here, but dress is one area also where I feel like once they've hit a certain age, you can't force them on what to wear. So when they're children, we shop for them. Then they get a little bit older and we shop with them. So we still have that, capacity to, kind of make the choices for them of what they're going to wear. But then when they enter in the teenagehood and the adult years, that's no longer in our control. But when our children are asking us, even as teenagers, "Mommy, can you go shopping with me?" So first of all, we must realize that is them still wanting our opinion. That is them asking us, I want your opinion on how this looks, on if this is sneeze enough. I want your advice. So when they want us to go shopping with them, I know that we can be so busy and we have younger children also, but chaparain, take the opportunity, go shopping with them. And as they get older, when they're teenagers, take a little bit of a backseat. You're there in the store with them. They're going through the racks of clothing and they're picking things according to their own taste. And when they put something on and they come out of the dressing room and it is tznius, recognize them loudly for that. But real. When you say to them, if I say to my daughter, how do you do that? Like, that's so amazing that you have such a good eye to choose clothing that is stylish and pretty and put together, and you look so good in it, and it's sneeze and so refined. You are just amazing how you do that. And which child who hears that is not going to want to do that again? This is again about building the inner wealth in them. You are putting that in them that they want to make that choice. When you recognize them loudly for the good choices and the sneeze choices that they made and how they look so good and so beautiful in it, really like a Bas Melech, that is going to make them want to do that again. And it's okay if you didn't do that when they're teenagers and now they're already adults and they're shopping completely on their own. You can still do that. Jump in at any opportunity when you see your daughter, coming in dressed in something sneeze and pretty. Tell her that. Make it a loud statement. And I think that is the way that we kind of, steer them to want to make those choices.
That's very practical. I love it. Thank you. And I see a lot, through this discussion that when our children are younger, we have these moments and we have to chaperine, these moments where we can really utilize them and have them be moments where we strengthen them so that when they get to high school and when they're faced with these challenges, we really strengthen them, inside, internally, to be able to face all of this. Okay, Mrs. Shachat.
Hi, I hope I'm answering the right question because I got disconnected by the question, but I can imagine where you're discussing about news. I think we have to look, first of all, I agree with everything I have said, and I just have a little bit to add to it. I think we have to look, why is that? Why is that many of our girls today, they hear the words news, and I see it in high school a lot. Oh, they don't want to hear, oh, girls, today we're going to have a class about news. That's not something they want to hear. Why is that? Why is something that they're not looking at and not excited to learn and to know more about it? And I think there is a few points here that we need. I'm just going to bring two of them that we need to look at it and maybe we can do something better. So the first thing is a lot of our girls, they feel judged by their external looks. So I'm good or not, if my skirt is long or not, if my elbows are covered, and that doesn't say anything about myself. So they feel very judged, and sometimes they will get upset by those comments. And the other thing, and this is the main thing, and I think was discussed already here, is that we really are maybe failing and teaching them what is really tznius. It is a mitzvah, but it's our way to connect to Hashem. When I am tznius, I'm actually bringing the light of my neshama out. I am connecting to Hashem in the best way possible. So if we get to that, and if we learn, and if we teach, and if we experience that, and we can give it to our kids, and they can see that excitement of getting, I can't wear that skirt. This is, again, something that I can't wear because it's not sneeze, but I'm happy. And we are a dogma, like everyone said, but we're not a happy dogma for them. And we have those meaningful conversation in the right time, and not a muster conversation. We're not there to tell them what they have to do and how they have to dress. We're them to listen to what they have to say, because when we ask questions, it comes from them. They know everything about it. They learn in a school. They can think about it and bring it up. We can guide them. But those meaningful conversation can be done with a lot of questions. What do you think? Why do you think tznius matters so much? How can we connect to Hashem? Why tznius is a way of us connecting to Hashem? Why tznius brings the beauty of your neshama? And everything comes from them, and we're strengthening them from inside. And they can look at tznius in a whole different way when we look at it like that, and we have those, again, meaningful conversation. So just wanted to add that, yeah. Another thing I want to add is we see in Yaakov Avinu, when he came to Yitzchak, Rivka made him wear the clothes of Esav. And he was able to say, Anochi Esav Bechorecha. Wearing those clothes, he was able to say, Anochi Esav Bechorecha. I mean, there's a lot of mefarshim on that, but one of the mefarshim explains that how powerful is tznius that makes us feel different. When we feel that, we are able to give that to our kids. When we feel how tznius can change us, and it's not just tznius and clothing, but in everything, it can actually change us, that we can give that also to our kids.
Thank you. So tznius has to really be a conversation. It's not like kosher where, this is what you could eat or this is what you can't eat, but tznius has to be a conversation with our children, an ongoing conversation from when they're younger, what it's really all about beyond just the actual halacha. Thank you. So we are running out of time. We have a great question coming up. I'm going to ask that question. We'll start exploring it a little bit. I don't know how much of it we'll be able to cover, but I don't want to leave this session without addressing the question, so we can dip our feet into the answer. And here's the question. We live in a world of abundance. We also live in a world where we very much work on positive reinforcement and encouraging and raising our children's self-esteem. And some of that has really produced a generation of people who feel self-entitled, and there's some lack of responsibility. And the question is, how do we combat that? How do we combat that? So let's begin with Mrs. Slavatitsky. Let's hear what you have to say, and we'll see how much time we can give this.
Okay. You know that in the last 60 years, we speak a lot about self-esteem and positive reinforcement, and we thought that we will raise a stronger generation. At the end of the day, there's a very big lack of self-esteem around. There's a lot of suicide, alcohol, drugs, addictions, a lot of psychological problems, personality disorders, much more than it was before. And on the other hand, we try to make feel when a child is born, even the secular world, they give him a special name because he has to feel that he's special from the first day, and special and a nickname, and we emphasize a lot on self-esteem and all this, but how do we see the results? It's not in balance with our investment. I know we have to write reports for the students. We have to write mainly compliments. We shouldn't write critics. If there is, say it on the side, and everything has to be positive and positive. And they go down. I don't see that they go up. And I think that the main problem is that we emphasize self-esteem not on the right place. When we give self-esteem, when we reinforce positive, we give compliments on what they had and who they are, we take away their self-esteem. Self-esteem is something that has to feel naturally. When I feel my hand, I know there is something wrong. When it's healthy, I don't feel it. When we have a healthy self-esteem, we don't have to be bothered by it. We don't feel it. Automatically, we act in a healthy way. when we have to think and to pump it in and to talk about it and do things, activities to improve the self-esteem, it means that it's a little bit sick because we shouldn't feel it. That's in a healthy way, we shouldn't feel it. And I think that because we, from the beginning, I think I spoke about it a little bit before, we have to bring into our children that they are part of a very, very big mission, and to be less I-centered and more God-centered, and to know that they have a unique mission that nobody else can do it instead of them. And the more we will emphasize in our compliments the potential and what they're able to do instead of what they did or what they have, talents, the opposite, just giving them to feel because you can make a change, a difference, because you are needed, not because you need and not because you have. And in this field, we don't have to give compliments. We have to give compliments on effort. We have to give compliments on using the potential, on struggling and making effort, on growth. One of the biggest, I think the most tremendous invention that Rebbe made was the Sibat Yom Uledet, parties for birthday. What is parties of birthday? It's really making a party on growing. When you become older and you take a good achlota, and growing is not leaving mistakes and growing out of failure of the wrong side. Growing means is a party. We have the ability to grow, to change, to choose, and our potential that we have is the way that what Hashem gave us, we need for what we can make the difference in the world. And the same is with abundance. There is abundance, begashmias, money and shefa, but the word shefa, abundance in Hebrew is shefa. Shefa means abundance, but shefa means lahashpia. It means all this, what I have, abundance is an opportunity to be mashpia. That's the way that Hashem shows me where I have to have an impact and make a difference. And if I have more money, that's there where I have to make a difference. If I'm smarter, there where I have to make a difference. If I can sing nicely, there where I have to make a difference. Whatever talent, where we have the abundance from Hashem in our lives, inside us, in our talents, in our koichos, the gashmis, whatever we have, this is opportunities to become who we should become, who we should be. And for what we have, we should say thank you. We say, Hashem, thank you for giving me a wonderful family and giving me all these talents and giving me health, and say thank you and thank you for what we are and what we have. But this is gift from Hashem to us. What we become, this is our gift to Hashem. And we have to emphasize self-esteem and compliments and positive reinforcement and abundance in the field of who I become. Am I all I can be? Do I feel that I can make a difference? And these are the messages. This is the language that has to come through every day from little, when they are little, to hear they can make a difference. They can grow, and growing is part of a party. And the parents also are part of the party. Not the parents are perfect and they just tell the children what they have to do. It's a family party where we all together grow. That's the biggest gift that Hashem gave us, that we can change and grow and become much bigger than we are. We were born tiny, helpless creatures, and we become partners in creation to make a dwelling home for the Eibishter, something that is unthinkable. But to feel this potential and to emphasize and give self-esteem on this potential, I saw that you were struggling, and I saw that you did it with a smile. Instead of coming, did you have good marks from the cheder? Asking, did you feel that you had a friend that Pogea Bacha said something bad to you, and how did you react? Could you overcome it? How did you do? Instead of this, when I'm coming at day camp, we have 1,000 children in day camp, in different camps. When I'm coming after day camp, I love to hear the young mothers coming, taking their children and asking them, did you have fun? And I said, no, you pushed me. And okay, come, let's buy a bisli. Next time it will be better. Ask, what did you do? How did you react? What's the best thing? What, this is positive reinforcement. This gives self-esteem. When you know right from wrong, you know that you have potential, you know that you could solve the problem. Make a whole talk about the problem. What did you do? How do you think you could do? Next day, what did you tell him this? Did you talk about the possibility of changing, of having impact, of making a difference, of becoming less I-centered, but what I needed here for? Why do they need me here for? Which shlichus, which part in my shlichus in the world I can realize at this point? And there to emphasize the self-esteem and giving abundance just as an opportunity to help me to give, to become even more a giver than before. Give extra lessons, give extra chugim. They should learn things. If we have the money, give them it. But it's to be a better person in giving, and not because you will have more success.
Beautiful. So do compliment, but compliment our children's growth in using their talents to make this world a more godly place. That's where the compliments belong.
Yeah, right.
Okay, we are, yes, we're out of time, but I would like to hear from Mrs. Shachat and Mrs. Gorman before we sign off. So Mrs. Gorman, if you would like to share with us your thoughts on this.
Okay, so just a practical tip on teaching responsibility. This is one thing that I really believe can be started at a very young age. And, you know, even the years when I had a whole bunch of little ones and I had some sets of twins in there as well, and I was having more cleaning help, you know, to help me manage everything. Still in all, I always had, and people would always ask me what they are when they came into the house. I had two wheels on the fridge. One of them was for the older crew and one of them was for the younger crew. And on one part of the wheel was their names, and on the inside of the wheel was jobs. And it's a system that worked, I have to say, like pretty much flawlessly, because there was no conversation about it or discussion about it or room for, you know, why do I have to have this job, or I had this job yesterday. Every day the wheel turned, and every day every child got another job. And the wheel for the older children had the harder jobs, and the wheel for the younger children had the easier jobs. But everyone had a sense of responsibility. I still have that in effect today. Everyone has a sense of responsibility. And regardless whether it was the years that I had more cleaning help, the years that I had less cleaning help, the years that I had no cleaning help, it made no difference. Everybody knew that they have to do their part. We are a team, and we're doing this as teamwork, and we are all responsible for each other, and we're responsible for our home. And this, for sure, without a doubt, it breeded in them a sense of responsibility from a very young age. And there's responsible in so many areas, but some practical ways that we can instill it in them from a very young age are things that we should take advantage of, and we should use them as opportunities. And then they grow from responsible children into responsible adults. And that's just one practical tip, how, you know, you do it, you know, physical responsibility around the house, but just taking a sense of responsibility and knowing that you are being trusted to do this job, then whichever area that you're talking about, giving them a sense of responsibility and not just entitlement, that is something that I feel very much starts from the home and from a young age.
Very practical tip. Thank you. And Mrs. Shachat, let's hear from you what you have to say on this topic.
So yeah, again, I agree with everything. Agree with what Mrs. Labatitsky said, that sometimes we want to be there for our kids. And for example, if they get something, a consequence or something from school, and we feel that this is terrible for the child, and we have to be there and protect him. I think in those situations, we have to stop for a second, think it over. It's not always good to just call quickly the principal, call the teacher, and don't do that to my child and protect him, because again, we're taking the responsibility away from the child. So I just want to finish this with a little bit of a tip in positive reinforcement. And I want to say that whenever many times we look at our children, and as human eyes do, we see and what they need to work on. We should be looking at the good things of them, but we see, for example, this child is not responsible enough. This child feels that everything belongs to him. If you want to change that child, if you want that child to be responsible, if you want that child to think about others, try the best way to do it, and really the most effective way to do it, is find when he's almost doing it or when he's doing it, and bring that up and say that you were thinking about others when you brought the fork to your brother. This is responsibility. When you open the door to your baby sister, make sure she's inside. You made sure to bring the wipes to the trip. That is responsibility. Whatever you want to work on your child, you're going to do this a few times. This child will turn to be a responsible person, a responsible girl, whatever you want to work, someone that thinks about others, a girl who's tznius, a girl who's whatever you want to work. This is the way to go about. So just bringing the positive reinforcement even more, but just do it right. Not just to give them as nothing, but when something happened, catch that and make it, and not just say, oh, you did something good. This shows me that you're responsible. Bring that thing that you want to grow. This shows me that you are thinking about it. This shows me that you're whatever it is that you want to bring up.
So true. So true. So you want to name the trait, catch your child in the moment doing it, or like you said, even almost doing it, and name that trait and show them how proud you are that they're doing that they're doing whatever it is that they're doing. I want to thank all three of the presenters for really fascinating answers to these questions. I do want to finish off with one beautiful idea that Rabbi Ashkenazi has prepared one of his shiurim, and he brings it down from the Rebbe on the words, "Have done as kol ha'adam l'kaf zechus." It says that we need to judge all man favorably, but the Rebbe takes the sentence and says we need to look at it a little bit differently. Have done as kol ha'adam, that we need to judge the entire person favorably, which means to say that our children are going to have their moments where they're going to say, we mess up, we make mistakes. But when we make a mistake, we don't want the other people to judge us based on our mistake. We say, look at us as a person, right? Look at me as who I am. Yes, I messed up and I made a mistake over here, but don't judge me for that one mistake. Judge me as an entire person. When they make mistakes, which inevitably that's going to happen because we're all human, but judge as kol ha'adam, the whole person that they are. See them for the beautiful neshama that they have, and for the amazing person that they are, and them working on themselves. And when we do that, we look at them, we zoom out and we look at the whole person, and we don't zoom in on that one flaw or those times that they made a mistake. Then we can really embrace them with love, because we see them as kol ha'adam. We're able to judge them favorably because we see them for the whole beautiful neshama that they are. So wishing us all nachas from all of our children, and hatzlacha to everybody, to all of us, in raising our children to be proud, b'nai Chabad, and standing in the front lines, Mashiach may be today.